Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's like one of the first times I'm doing training and it's kind of dreary out there. It reminds me of San Francisco where I grew up. It's a little foggy. It's certainly wet and drizzling. It's not even real rain where you can kind of embrace it with an umbrella. But I'm still here in a good mood. I'm here to talk about DOGE and an executive order that came out of President Trump. So we'll dive into that in a second. I do appreciate those of you engaging on chat. I want to encourage you to keep doing that. I'm seeing people put in just really short things like Latanya, I'm seeing here, Springdale, Arizona, identified consulting. I like the identified consulting, but right below that is Raha. Put in, when you're putting things into chat, kind of put little smaller things. You can put in more things throughout the training that we do because that's your community. But when you do, it makes it really easy to see it very fast and go away and come back, go away, come back. But when you put a big block of text, frankly, 3 or 4 more people might sit there and put a comment in and it scrolls up too fast, right? So think about how you engage in there. But I love that you're engaging because these events that I do every day at noon on LinkedIn, YouTube, et cetera, these events are part training and part community and networking. Community building and networking. So I want you to engage out there. I love the fact that you're telling us what you're selling. So keep that up. And thank you to those showing up early and on time. I really appreciate that. LinkedIn puts the word out, right? We already have over 130, 140 people here live. So that's really good. I did want to say one thing. If you haven't heard me talk about 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, this is my all-time favorite business book, hands down. I've been reading it since 1997. I read it every single year and I sign it to remind myself. Nowadays, I'm more on the book is for reference and I listen to the audio because it's really good for when I go for a walk and it can sink in. But in there, Stephen Covey has 7 habits. And habit number 1, and I write my habits down so I can carry them with me everywhere. Habit number 1 is be proactive. And that's the purpose of today's training is I want us to be proactive about whatever we see coming out of the administration, out of DOGE, which is basically part of the administration, the things we see, we need to be proactive. And so some of it, we're going to have to react, but some of it is pretty predictable. What I'm going to talk about today, in my opinion, in my understanding of what I share with my customers, we're going to need a proactive approach to it because we only got a taste of what's about to happen. And now we've got the next 60 days at least to watch it kind of begin to transform. And that's what we're going to cover down in today's training. So if you haven't been fully tracking on this, and it's hard, there's so much out there. I actually tell people, look, if you see something interesting, send it to me. A friend of mine just sent me something this morning. He's like, hey, you got to see this. Contracts are going to GSA. I'm like, yeah, I know, dude. I'm doing the training today. But I appreciated that he sent it to me because I could miss things. There's so much out there. But this one we're going to track on because an executive order came out late last week that, let me see if I got it. I got it right here. So this one, eliminating waste and saving taxpayer dollars by consolidating procurement. Now, you can go through and read this whole thing. I'm not here to read it to you. I do not do that kind of training. I could care less about the nuance of the words. What I care about is the intent. When I was in the military, that was something that was really important. Commander's intent or whoever's intent. We need to make sure we're executing on not just what they told us, but the intended results they expected. And so for President Trump's executive order that comes out, he said basically, and I'm summarizing it down, right? Go read it yourself as you figure it out. But basically, he said, hey, all you agencies out there, you need to figure out what you're buying that can be pushed over to GSA so that GSA starts buying it on your behalf. An example is if you look at Department of Commerce or some of the agencies within there, what are you guys buying? What can be pushed over? Maybe administrative services or some IT services, office supplies, whatever it is, right? I'm not going to pretend like we know what the answer is yet because that's what the next 60 days is going to be about. But the idea is anything that could be bought, we call this common goods. And I've done a ton of training on this. You can go back and look at my replays, YouTube, et cetera, where I describe common goods. There's 10 common goods that the government buys across all agencies. And then there's 9 extra ones that are defense specific. But there are certain procurements that it doesn't matter who buys it. I just need a pen. I don't need to be the one buying it in my agency is the thought that is behind this executive order, right? It could go to GSA and they could be the pen buyers of the entire federal agency. but there's some stuff that is really unique. So an example is maybe I'm buying a procurement around weather tracking systems or what NASA does with, man's missions to Mars or something. That's really unique. And maybe that procurement should be done at the agency, but there's massive amount. And I would submit it's 50, 60% of what any agency buys at least could be considered this common type purchase. And that's my interpretation of this executive order. So I'm just kind of level setting that in there. We'll talk a minute about why, but I think this will be good. I think this executive order, if it goes in the direction I'm thinking it will, which is moving most procurement, certainly the common goods and services, over to GSA. If it goes over, I believe it'll make it a lot easier, certainly on the government, which we'll talk about, but on small businesses, I feel like now we'll be able to go to one agency. We'll really begin to get into a rhythm. And I think we'll start getting rid of some of these clicky ways, or good old boy systems that procurement happens in Charleston. And, you hear about this in the military, especially different agencies, but it happens even like in the Coast Guard, where I guess that's still military, right? But where they prefer to buy from coasties. But if some of this procurement is pushed to a procurement shop, GSA, then the procurement is just based on best for the government and prices. And we figure out how to play at that level. But now a lot more small businesses, in my opinion, will be able to play, because you don't have to try to have a visibility across a ton of different agencies to sell something that is not mission specific, meaning you don't have to understand the mission to sell a pen or to sell secretarial services, whatever, right? Basic legal services. So I think it'll be pretty good for us. And obviously I come at things with an optimistic approach. I'm like, how can I make this good? I break my right arm. I'm like, well, I always wanted to learn how to use my less dominant arm, right? Or something. That's just kind of the Irish way, is trying to put an optimistic spin on things that sometimes aren't necessarily there. I also wanted to say this is this GSA move of contract vehicles. No one knows what's going on. Not me and not any other person out there, including the Trump administration. They are in this figuring it out mode. And what I want us to do is to figure it out with them and to make sure we're right there with them, so that the minute something happens, we're able to execute on it, or we're able to anticipate what's going to happen. Where Wayne Gretzky talks about don't skate to where the puck is. He says skate to where the puck's going to be. And that's what I want us to be doing, is thinking about where's the puck going to be in the federal government contracting world. So if that makes sense and you're ready for that, process this the way this happens, do me a favor, just throw process rocks into the chat. Let me know you're rocking and rolling. We got well over 200 people here live, so this is an important topic, and I want us to be focusing on each other. So as I talk about DOGE was going to, I use this pretty heavy title, DOGE will destroy contract vehicles, but that's a little bit aggressive of a title, because I think DOGE will also create some contract vehicles over in GSA, and that's the part I really want to dive into. So I'm going to break down today's training into three sections. First thing I want to talk about is, why do I think DOGE is moving contract vehicles to GSA or procurement, or however we describe it. Again, don't look to me in the way I'm doing training. It's like, oh, I'm coming out and saying how it is in the FAR and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm looking at it as a sales guy, as if I was a salesperson on your team. How would I advise you? How do I advise my customers? This is literally what I'm telling them. I think that DOGE is moving over, and here's why. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. Second thing I want to talk about is just from a high level, right? How do you start strategically thinking about a plan to deal with this movement of contract vehicles and procurement out of various agencies into GSA? If this thing happens, how do we track on it? How do we have a big plan? And then the last thing I want to end up with is stuff you could take today, tomorrow at the latest, right? Steps you could take immediately to begin to plan for the eventuality of procurement activities moving into GSA. So that's what we're going to cover down on today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I am co-founder of GovCon in a Box, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market after I got out of the Army as a small business government contractor. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. This is what I want for you. When you have predictable results, repeatable process, you'll have predictable results. And this is what I want for you. If you're on YouTube or other places, follow me on LinkedIn. I put out a ton of good content. I'm putting out a lot right now related to Navy and related to Department of Energy. So I put out a lot of stuff if you'd like to connect. The other thing is on LinkedIn, if you're not on it, this is where we're able to engage. Nowhere else can we engage as much as we can here. Subscribe to my government contracting success newsletter right here on LinkedIn. It is the largest GovCon newsletter out there. And I used to sit there and say, like, we're almost at 24,000 subscribers. And I used to say, we're even bigger than DOD. But here's the thing. DOD just stripped every one of their articles and it killed its newsletter because of what's going on in the administration. I won't do that. I don't take money from the federal government, so I can do whatever I want in this particular case, as long as it's, basically good. And the last thing is, and I don't mean basically good, I mean really good. And the last thing is tomorrow's training. Check it out. It's FOMO is bad for government contracting. You can find a lot of my other trainings that are the rest of this week. But what I mean by FOMO is if you don't narrow it down, and I think I'll talk about it in a slide, but if you don't narrow down what you sell, and you try to go everywhere, then you're not going to have success. If you narrow down and get in the door with just one clear, focused offer, then you're going to be able to have success. I wanted to congratulate the companies that are in the 100 Club, in particular, Phalanx and Trans-Pacific. These two companies just joined the 100 Club. I created something called the Federal Visibility Score. How visible are you to federal buyers on their own tools? So any of this shifting around with contract vehicles, et cetera, if the federal buyers try to find you, can they? Go to govconinAbox.com. I have a free tool in there. You see your profile. Up in the top right is a score. Click on the score and you'll be able to see step-by-step guidance I give you for free in there about how do you make yourself visible in the buyer's tools, not in my tools, in the federal buyer's tools. And then congratulations to all the other companies. If you're in the 100 Club, say what number you are. Let us know. Okay, so let's talk about, I got 18 minutes, right? So we go right to 12:30. But let's talk about why DOGE is doing this activity. And here I'm saying DOGE because even though it's an executive order coming out of the Trump administration, right, the White House, the reality is this is part of the DOGE initiative, Department of Government Efficiency. They're trying to look at the entire federal government procurement process. This is a really big part of where they see they can implement efficiencies, right? And I'm not here to judge it on good or bad. I'm here to sit there and define things as they are and then create a plan that helps you and me have success as a government contractor still in 2025. So efficiency, right, in that procurement process, how things are being bought. DOGE is just trying to look at that and go, can we improve it? Frankly, everybody out there has wondered how we can improve contract and procurement life cycles, et cetera, right? And so it's nothing new, this idea to improve the procurement process. There's been FAR-based contracting, if you're familiar with this. Basically, it's how we always been doing buying and selling. And then they came out with this other transaction authority or OTAs. And that's like designed to be faster moving for more innovative or R&D type stuff, prototyping. And they're trying to go, how can we get more efficient with our rapid procurement when our traditional process is so bureaucratic, right? Well, doesn't matter which party, we've always been looking at that, trying to figure it out. And that's what DOGE is doing with this look at what are you buying in agencies that GSA can manage. Second thing is they want to centralize, and this is my way of stating this, they want to centralize the expertise of contracting officers. I talk about how in DOD, they have 185,000, and that was like 2 years ago, 185,000 contracting officers or people in the acquisition workforce. And then they have all these other people who are supporting that acquisition workforce. And then you count in the civilian agencies and you could probably double that. Well, this idea of centralizing an expertise around a particular task is a really smart move. The government did it a long time ago with construction, where they said, hey, if you have any really large construction projects, you need to send them to the Army Corps of Engineers, who are the experts at construction, and look to them, right? I can't remember the threshold, but I definitely remember the whole idea that they're the experts at building things, at constructing things, right? So let's go to them. The third bullet here, reduce redundant costs. And this is huge. I'm actually working with a customer right now. For the last 4 weeks, we've been trying to shape an idea, a business case, and get it into federal agencies and get it in front of DOGE and some others. And I've taught about this in previous training where you need to kind of come up with your own DOGE ideas. But we have these 200 contracts that we think can be consolidated into one and managed in a different way. And when we did that, we started learning a lot more about the average cost, right? Many of you might know this already, but I didn't really know what the average cost of just contract administration. And it's like 8 to 10% for a fairly small contract. Let's say it's under $2 million, 8 to 10%. That's huge. But when you start bringing those into a single agency like GSA, who are the experts at procurement, they start implementing all sorts of efficiencies into their process. And the last reason I'm suggesting that they're bringing it all in is pricing, right? Why should they pay one price at RME, one price at DHS, one price over at EPA? There should be one price for this mouse, right? I got a mouse. I should not, as a federal buyer, pay different prices depending on which agency it is. That's inefficient for the executive branch. And the executive branch, if you don't know this, is one big Walmart type company, right? Or Amazon. The federal government is like Amazon. If you look at Amazon, it's got the Amazon name, and then it's got all these different companies and entities, et cetera. Well, the government's kind of that same thing. President Trump's the CEO of that company called the executive branch, and all these agencies are just different departments within, right? And so every single one of them should be able to buy a pen or a mouse or a help desk service for the same price. If all I'm doing is answering the phone saying, hi, can I reset your password? Well, that price should be the same. And so I'm submitting that's another reason they're doing this, is to truly try to have a more efficient approach to pricing. And these are, my takes on why they're moving it over. And I'm not here to debate it, by the way. This is what my take is and what I'm sharing with my customers. And I look at this. This is how I see. I want to back up one slide for a second. This is how I see what the executive order is. I saw somebody over the weekend say, oh, it's no big deal. Don't worry. They're only moving a couple of contracts. They're like GWACs, these government-wide acquisition. So if you follow their guidance, you will get massively and negatively surprised in 60 days when all the contracts or 50% of the contracts are moved under GSA, et cetera. But if you follow my recommendation, even if you do the stuff I say and it doesn't turn out to be the way that I'm saying, you will be far more knowledgeable. And so what I'm saying is, don't put your head in the sand like an ostrich, right? Look up and face this reality and say, okay, what do we do? And that's my next slide, right? How do we start creating a strategic plan around this? And so the very first thing I want you to keep in mind is you've got to be clear about what you sell. And I know that sounds like a simple piece of advice, or maybe people are thinking to themselves, oh, he's talking about new companies. No, I'm not. New companies are still a little bit confused about everything. I'm talking about companies that are doing $1, $5, $10, $20 million. I was working with a company that had a $150 million contract. And when I talked to 40 different leaders, managers and directors, et cetera, asked them what you sell, they couldn't say the same thing. They were all over the board. And the problem with that is it's really hard to know what to do with marketing or know what to do with your pipeline, which opportunities to bring in. It's really hard to figure out which people do we talk to. It's really hard to come into an event like this and put in what you sell, right? When you sell everything or you're so kind of unfocused about it, it's hard. My last company, we sold SharePoint. And I used to say, hey, we're a SharePoint company. We were known that way. Yet we did enterprise architecture, we did software development, we did cybersecurity, we did all sorts of stuff. But what people thought we did in our branding around that was one single thing. And that's what I want you to do, is be very clear about what you sell and then niche it down as far as you can, right? I don't need you to go down to the very lowest thing, but come up to this pool where you're certain you can make $5 or $10 million or something. And let me pause for a second. Tell me what you sell right now, and do it this way if you would. I sell 1, 2, 3 to the federal agencies, right? Even if you sell to commercial, let's just say federal agencies at the moment. I sell Microsoft SharePoint services to federal agencies. What 2 or 3 words could you say that lets everybody else know? There's Jerry and Melvin and Kenan. Tell them what you sell with a statement that begins with, I sell 1, 2, 3, this, and this to federal agencies. Put that into the chat as I continue talking about creating a strategic plan. I want to see it. And I know there's federal buyers and larges in here right now. We have over 300 people live right now on an event I just put out 2 days ago. We want to work together, but we need you to tell us what you sell. All right, the third bullet, identify all contract vehicles that can be used with what you sell. That's why I say be clear about what you sell and then niche down, right? Sleep testing services from Jennifer. So Jennifer needs to go look and say, what contract vehicles are used for sleep testing services? She's got to look out there on GSA. She's got to look out on FPDS, et cetera, to find it. I have other training that talks about how to do it. But keep this in mind. There are hundreds of thousands of contract vehicles across the federal government. This is another thing DOGE is trying to attack. There's something called best in class, BIC. There's about 40 of those. Then there's GWACs. These are government-wide acquisition contract vehicles, which are used across the board. You can think of something like STARS 3 or GSA maybe, the mass schedule. My point is, though, then it starts getting down into tons of unknown. Well, Jennifer needs to go find out where are her services being bought, what contract vehicle. And then the last thing I want you to think about from a strategic plan, and this is a little longer thinking, and in this case, I mean like 60 to 90 days, 120 days. I want you to create a plan to be on every one of your top 10 contract vehicles that you identify. So if I identify as an example, Seaport Next Gen, Seaport Next Generation or STARS 3, I'm going to go find out who's on those contract vehicles, and I'm going to either try to onboard onto them if I can. I'm buy a company where I can novate them on, and I'm not trying to be an expert on that. Or I'm just going to get on a team as a sub. Hey, can I join your team on Seaport Next Gen, which is a Navy contract vehicle? That's very easy. They basically go in the portal and say, here, John Smith is now added to my vehicle. So you can see the opportunities that are coming down, and then you can work with that prime holder. But that's really important to know where what you're selling is being bought. Hey, I want to take a quick pause and just thank the sponsors of today's training. Graham does staffing and ASL services. Reach out to them, talk about American Sign Language or your staff augmentation needs. Steel Toed does cybersecurity and CMMC services. I was talking with Dean yesterday, who owns Steel Toed, and we were talking about him actually coming on and talking on one of these lives, but he was talking about how there's two different groups. The people can help you get ready for CMMC, and the people who can get you, I think the term is assessed for CMMC or certified. They can do both. They can't both for you, but they can do one or the other. But you definitely want to go check out his website because they got a lot of good information that helps you prep if you want to succeed in DOD. Silk River Capital, if you're looking for small business loans, they're experts in government contracting. That's their specialty. And then LinkedIn Recruiting. LinkedIn Recruiting is available for people looking to sit there and start hiring. There's all sorts of hiring needs. Despite a lot of the layoffs we see, there's still a lot of hiring going on. And so thank you to our sponsors. By the way, somebody just asked a quick question. I can't get to them all, but what's a reasonable time frame for the switch from procurement actions to individual agencies to GSA? I would say 60 to 90 days. And there'll be all sorts of people who go, procurement takes a long time. Yeah, it took a long time, January 19th and earlier. But since President Trump has been here and since DOGE has been here, I have thrown out all things. They have canceled contracts, massive. They have gone up against the 10 largest companies, billion-dollar firms, brought them in and said, hey, we're going to cancel 65 or $100 billion of your consulting contracts. You got a week to figure out why we shouldn't do that. They'll move fast. It's actually why I have some ideas and work with my customers on pushing DOGE ideas, because frankly, if DOGE likes it, they can make it happen tomorrow. That's the speed we're at the moment. Don't let anybody tell you that things are still moving slow. I hope things will get nicer, right? But things are moving fast. All right, so here's what I got 7 minutes left, and here's the steps I want you to take today, right? Take it this afternoon. You're here today, so there must be something you're looking for related to what's going on with DOGE and GSA. So the first thing I would recommend, after you have identified your top 10 contract vehicles at the beginning, right? And then make sure you have, I would be looking for 50 vehicles. That takes time, a lot of time. But theoretically, you can go among the agencies and find how they're buying what you're selling. But when you find those vehicles, find the government point of contacts for those vehicles. So example is on GSA Mass, those vehicles, you can go in and there's a contract holder. If you have that contract vehicle, you know what I'm talking about. But you can find those people. If you're looking at Seaport Next Gen or NASA Super, any of these, they all have government points of contact. You want to start having conversations with those people about, hey, what's going on? How can I plan? Blah, blah, blah. You want to get on their radar. So at the very least, you're listening to what they're saying. Number two is go find all the people who have the contract vehicle. And when I say all, I literally mean all. For example, Seaport Next or STARS 3, I keep talking about it. It's an IT contract vehicle for 8 days. But it's like a $50 billion ceiling. and hopefully it's in there. I can't remember if it hit the best in class, but it doesn't matter. It has over 1,000 contract holders. These are small business, 8A small businesses. I'm going to go in and have them in there, and I'm going to rack and stack them by the ones I think are best to be able to reach out to and talk to. And then I'm going to start reaching out. It doesn't take long to reach out to 1,000 people, a few weeks or something. And so if you're looking to figure out how do you move forward, today is the day you 10X, right? Today is the day you act like you're going on vacation tomorrow. Work that hard. Number 3 is create a target list of people. So I said create a list. Number 2 is create a list of the small businesses or the contractors who have won it. Now build a target list of people there. So 2 or 3 people at every one of those companies, so that you have a person you're reaching out to. Hey, Jane, I saw you guys have Stars 3. I'd love to talk to you about how we might be able to participate, help you guys win more contracts, whatever it is. You can watch other training I do on the how, but reach out to these people. And that begins by creating a target list. Number 4 is start building your relationship with these people, right? When I say reach out to 1,000 people, I'm not saying reach out to 1,000 people and build a relationship with 1,000. You're trying to reach out to, and I'm just using 1,000 as a large number for Stars 3, but it could be 100, right? If you reach out to 100 people, you're going to find 5 or 10 people who want to begin to talk with you. If those companies, those people have the contract vehicle you want to work on, because that's how the government buys what you sell, then those will be good relationships to have. And you begin to develop those relationships, right? You share information that you hear about with them. You identify opportunities that might be going over, and you get on those contract vehicles, especially as a sub. But the idea here is to find out which vehicles are out there in agencies that might be pushed over into GSA. When you start identifying those even before the government does, you'll track fast. You can move way faster than the government can, because you know exactly what you sell, and you know how to use FPDS to go search, right? The government's going to have to do this. These agencies, even though they got the order and it's like you got 60 days, they're going to be freaking out. They're not used to moving at the speed that you move at. So anyways, put in place a plan to start finding these people who have the contract vehicles that most likely you can use and or will be moved over to GSA to be run under GSA. And definitely start with the GSA contract vehicles. Okay, here's what I want you to remember from today's training. First off, know your starting point. If you're brand new to government contracting, you've done like 100,000 or something, you're in a whole different position than if you're doing 5+ million, let's say, right? And so know your starting point and create a plan based on that. If you're not doing much revenue, 100,000, then there's a whole different strategic approach. In fact, I wouldn't even pursue this contract vehicle so much. I would find companies that are selling what you sell or something related to what you sell and go in there and just try to be part of their team as a subcontractor. Now, as you're bigger, it is really important to be on contract vehicles or to be teamed up with people who have that, because that's how you hear about opportunities, right? It's through the relationships you have and the contract vehicles that the opportunities will be coming out on. The second thing is build that contract vehicle list. So understand how the government currently buys what you sell, which contract vehicles, and then crosswalk that back to what you think is going to happen at GSA, that blend. And then the last thing, number 3, is create a target list of people so that you can start reaching out to the government people who are managing the contract. You can start reaching out to the contract vehicle holders, the other small businesses, or even larges, right? There's nothing wrong with reaching out to larges. I would submit even larges at the moment are looking for tighter relationships with smalls, because with a small, they have employee costs as well. And we smalls, frankly, are disposable. So if we're in there, they might see us that way, bring us in. I loved it because I had a large, very large company who gave us millions of dollars. They saw us as disposable, but for like 4 years, they saw us as disposable, which was perfect for us. It helped us grow as a business, but build relationships out there. So last thing I just wanted you to remember about today's training is that I really do think this thing about consolidating procurement into GSA will be good for smalls, but it's important for us to be proactive of how that's going to be good for my company and for your company. Hey, don't forget to sign up for tomorrow's training. I got 4 more trainings this week. If you're interested in coaching, you're doing 2 million plus and you really want help executing on this, feel free to reach out to me. But for all of us, just remember as we go into the day, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is ending on time. I'm out of here because it's almost done. I will see you in the next training.